BBC Wiltshire.
Let's get physical with Sue Kinnear and Kelly Morgan.
Yes, hello. We're having a laugh this hour on Let's Get Physical, literally.
Well, it's supposed to be good for the stomach muscles, isn't it?
Yeah, better than not laughing.
Exactly, and we're going to find out because tonight we're welcoming a stand-up comic who's also a 9 times heavyweight wrestling champion.
Impressive.
Live from where you live.
BBC Wiltshire.
Now, we're upping the ante on Let's Get Physical this evening with a 9 times UK and European champion. Oh, yes. This man is a heavyweight guest of the very finest wrestling variety.
His name is Michael Kohlweg, and he's won wrestling glory both in Britain and in Germany. He's also a bodybuilder and a stand-up comedian. Now, that is quite a combination of skills. Evening, Michael.
Well, that's a very kind introduction for me. That makes me sound like such an important person. I feel very special.
Well, you've got lots of skills, that's for sure. I mean, what came first out of all of those things? The bodybuilding or the wrestling or the comedy? Or...
Well, it's an interesting story. I was born, at a very young age.
Obviously.
in Dusseldorf in Germany, and we very quickly came over to England, and I don't know, there's just been a part of me that's always been quite sporty. Always been interested in sports, always been interested in just being physically active. I mean, even back when I was a kid at school, I didn't particularly like team events, like football and things like that. And there's something with football as well. You can make a great shot. You can also make a terrible shot.
Yeah.
And it's almost luck of the draw. Whereas when I started going to the gym,
yes,
I started exercising, it was very much a solo event.
Yeah.
And you could only rely on yourself.
I quite like that too, you see.
Well, you couldn't let a team down because it was just yourself.
That's a responsibility, isn't it? The team thing.
Exactly. That's right. And so I found lifting weights first. But that was through my love of general sports anyway. So you could say the sporting came first or the bodybuilding came first. It's a mix. But basically, as soon as I went into the gym, that was when I sort of found myself. Because I was doing things for me. It was my achievements and those incremental improvements in whether it be lifting weights or cardiovascular exercise, something. I was making improvements and I could see it in myself.
Yeah. It's great feedback, isn't it? Great feedback for hard work. And then you rolled yourself into wrestling. So how did that come about?
Well, I guess becoming a professional wrestler was my dad's fault, I suppose. He always loved wrestling from before I was born. And it's a funny story. He always tells me this. It was 1989, October 1989, and it was the first time that the World Wrestling, then it was called Federation, it's now called Entertainment, the World Wrestling Federation was coming over to the UK for the first time. My dad had tickets to see Hulk Hogan performing live.
I'd have been there.
It's the most amazing experience you could possibly imagine.
Yeah,
except I was rude enough to decide to be born that day, so he missed the show and had to see me instead.
So we got a wrestler's son instead. That's amazing. That's good payback.
It's my little way of trying to make it up to him.
Yes,
I suppose.
I think he won. But you mentioned Hulk Hogan there, and you also mentioned the word entertainment. That's the thing about wrestling, isn't it? Everyone always thinks that it's just choreographed, don't they? Is it?
Right, I don't know how many secrets I want to give away here, to be perfectly honest. It's my livelihood we're talking about, but I can tell you this much. When we get in the ring, my intention is not to hurt the person I'm in the ring with, because if I injure that person, they can't work, they can't feed their family. It's not professional.
Okay.
Professional athleticism, we all know that there's a predetermined outcome. Okay, the internet has ruined that for us. There's no way I can tell it otherwise.
Yes.
But when we're in that ring, as vicious as this may sound, when I hit someone, I hit them.
Yeah.
I'm making that. You can hear it. You can hear the sound of the contact of skin on skin. When I lift someone up in the air and slam them on the ground, I can't fake that. There's no pulleys and levers and invisible wires, you see. I'm hoiking someone in the air and I'm slamming them on the ground. You can't fake gravity.
Yeah, and Kelly, you need to give wrestling a go because it sounds brutal. She
Well,
loves the brutal sports.
I love the combat sports, and I'm all up for trying a bit of wrestling. But what I am not up for, I'm not up for the outfits, Michael. I'm not going to lie. I'm not. I'm just putting it out there. No to masks, okay?
It's funny you say masks. Actually, when I started in professional wrestling, I was so young. I was only 15 years old. and I was too young to really be seen on stage, because it's almost child cruelty beating up a 15-year-old, isn't it? So they put me under a mask. And my original gimmick, as it were, I started under the name Cano Tango. And I used to come out to the ring with cans of tango. And I had a bright orange mask, bright orange pleather trousers on. And the kids loved me because I was giving them out free drinks. I mean, of course you're going to love someone that does that.
Never mind the kids, I'm loving you, Michael. And we're going to hear more about Can Tango, was it?
Cano Tango. That's
Cano
right.
Tango. More about that and the many other guises our guest this hour, Michael Kohlweg, puts on in his professional sporting and comedic life in a little while on BBC Wiltshire. Right now, though, I have to say, on Let's Get Physical, you pretty much have to change your clothes for just about everything we talk about, don't you?
You do. Yeah. There's lots of different outfits, isn't there?
Yes, there
Somebody
is.
knows a lot about that. See what I did there?
See what I did there?
Is our middle hour live guest this evening, which is Michael Kohlweg, who is a bodybuilder, a heavyweight wrestling champ and a stand-up comedian. And we were just chatting in the song about I loved WWF when I was a kid.
Yeah.
My era was The Undertaker, Bret the Hitman Hart. They were my wrestlers.
And my wrestlers, it was Giant Haystacks, Big Daddy. Oh, Shirley Crabtree. He was wonderful, he was. So what's your name?
So my stage name it's quite an interesting story where it comes from, actually. When I started to compete in bodybuilding contests, I competed in the Natural Physique Association, the NPA, and that's all drug-tested natural competitive bodybuilding. Not all bodybuilding organisations are actually drug-tested, but this one is. So I have a certain amount of pride for being able to have won competitions in a drug-tested environment.
Yeah.
But the very, very famous bodybuilder at that time, like the biggest bodybuilder in the world at that time, was a guy called Jay Cutler.
Right.
And so when I transitioned away from my faster-paced, young, acrobatic Cano Tango gimmick, we were looking for a new gimmick to try.
This was the grown-up gimmick, was it now?
This is a grown-up, yeah, no mask, my real face, and the physique had started to build and develop, so I didn't look like a child anymore. I looked like a man, and we needed a name. And so someone said, almost as a joke, we could say K. Jutler, which is a parody of Jay Cutler. So K. Jutler became my name, and I came out to the ring with my bodybuilding trophies, claiming that I was the biggest man in wrestling and with the best physique. And then usually the hometown hero, that was the good guy, would come down, smack the snot out of me, and everyone would go home happy. So it was kind of a comedy gimmick to start with. It was just developed out of almost a joke. But the problem is, as I slowly developed my physique and got bigger and bigger and became more of a legitimate threat within the world of wrestling, the comedy value kind of got lost because I was competing against people who were the same size or even smaller than I was. Yeah. So it's like, is he joking about this, or is that name? So I'm stuck now with the name K. Jutler.
Yes.
But the comedy value of which has now been lost.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you've touched on there, though, about being like the bad guy, and obviously the hometown guy's the good guy, because I remember watching WWF. It was based on goodies and baddies, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
As a freelance kind of wrestler, traveling the world on shows, you're always the good guy, always the bad guy, or does it very much vary?
It's an interesting. It very much depends on the political side of things. Like, for example, in May, I was wrestling in France, and they hated me. Absolutely hated me. I could not put a foot right. But then I was in Denmark, and they absolutely adored me.
Yeah, just what's that all about?
How can you
Is that
judge?
blonde hair and those blue eyes somehow split Europe? But the entertainment side, the showmanship of it. I mean, obviously you're physically very, very fit, and you have won.
Oh, you're charmer.
But you've won 9 titles, for heaven's sake.
I did, yes,
British
that's right,
and European.
correct.
So you are in the peak of physical fitness. But how much do you enjoy the entertainment, the showmanship, the performance, the Cana Tango, and the?
It's interesting you say that, because obviously there was a certain amount of entertainment involved in the wrestling, but ultimately you are focused on to a degree protecting the person you're in the ring with and making sure that you keep them safe so that they can compete again the next day.
Yes.
And it is very much the physical side of entertainment, but you are focused primarily on that.
Yeah.
And it was almost as if, as much as I love the sport, there was a certain amount that I wasn't getting from professional wrestling. And that's why I sort of started to venture, just the idea started to cross my mind of going into stand-up comedy, in the sense that I can stand on stage and actually enjoy, banter with the crowd and enjoy just chatting to people
Yes.
and talking and making people laugh, because it's all very well and good going out on stage and putting on a performance that people are cheering and screaming for.
Yes.
When you're so focused in the moment, you're almost not paying attention to the audience. You're just focused on what you're doing in the ring.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So you had a real desire to interact with the crowd, and you're quite right. In combat sports, you kind of shut down, your senses shut down, right? So you weren't getting that you needed from the sport.
I mean, it's not necessarily that I was perhaps a poor choice of words. I mean, now obviously there's a certain amount of feedback from the audience that you get when you're wrestling, and I love that. I love interacting with the crowd, but those interactive moments are few and far between.
Yeah.
Because you're focusing on the opponent that you're fighting in the ring.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're a stand-up comedian, the only thing you're focused on is that interaction between you and the audience. And so that's where the difference was lying with me.
What's scarier, standing up in front of a comedy crowd or in the ring with a guy who's built like a brick outhouse?
Very, very interesting question. I once, in 2016, I had a tryout for a company in Japan, and I wrestled in front of 3,000 people on television in Japan.
Whoa.
I was more nervous standing up in front of 35 people in a pub in Bristol to try and make them laugh. My very first stand-up was an open mic in Bristol, and I was terrified.
Yeah, well, it's a big step into the unknown, isn't it? Out of your comfort zone, so to speak. I really want to know how you keep yourself looking like that. How tough is that?
Well, with regards to my training, it's a 5 or 6 day split in the gym. So I'll pick a particular body part. Maybe, for example, yesterday, Monday, was legs. You know, get it away in the beginning of the week, get that out of the way so I can walk by the weekend. You know, and I'll just choose a different body part each day, and I'll just work that, and then cardio is usually at the weekend. But you can absolutely hammer yourself in the gym as much as you want. You're not going to get any results if the food isn't right.
Well,
so much more to talk about, isn't there? With Michael Kohlweg, our guest tonight, who is a bodybuilding heavyweight champion wrestler with a fair flair for comedy. More from him in a moment, right here on Let's Get Physical on BBC Watch. I haven't noticed you doing anything, Cal, to be brutally honest.
Just riding on your coattails, Sue.
We are having a laugh this hour, though. Michael Kohlweg, our guest, as well as being an athlete in the wrestling ring, 9 times European and British champion, and a bodybuilder. And a personal trainer. He's our guest this hour. I want to chat to you about the comedy in a minute, Michael, but first, I'm intrigued by how diet, you said when I asked how you stay in the shape you're in, that as well as the exercise routine, it's what you put in your body, it's what you eat that is key. So what do you eat?
I could go through everything I eat, but we'd be here all day. But I mean, honestly, the general thing, I have 6 meals a day.
6?
6. And my biggest meal of the day is breakfast,
Right.
10 egg whites and 100 grams of porridge. And then it progressively... Yeah, thank you. And it
That sounds
gets-
disgusting.
For enjoyment, I eat it for the necessity.
Really?
And then you've progressively... the meals get progressively smaller all the way down to the evening. Whereas if you thought the eggs were disgusting, you wait for this. My last meal of the day is 300-gram tub of cottage cheese.
Oh,
That's gross.
Oh, no,
And
no.
but do you like the food? I mean, I'm thinking
No,
that's horrible. But
not at all.
So you
It's
literally...
an absolute chore.
And you 6 times a day, it's a chore.
Yes.
So
I
what's
eat-
a treat for you?
Well, for argument's sake, you can probably tell my voice is a little husky. My girlfriend came over yesterday and surprised me with some low-fat ice cream.
Oh,
Fair
nice.
enough.
And that was a treat.
That was a treat, yeah. It
Yeah.
was
You
something special.
Do you all year round work through this regime, or you've got to have some breaks where you just let your body recover and absorb and just chill out mentally as well?
Logically, you would think that was the case, but obviously with wrestling, you don't have an off-season. You know, with football,
yeah.
with all sports,
Most
you have a
competitive
season and an
sports,
off-season.
yeah.
But with wrestling, I'm wrestling all year. I've got to be in shape all year.
Yeah.
So I've got to eat the right things at the right time. And that's really where everyone gets wrong. They tend to have a very small breakfast or even miss breakfast.
Yeah.
They have a very light salad lunch and then they have a massive dinner and wonder why they're putting weight on.
Yeah,
Well,
it's the wrong way around,
If
isn't
I put it to you this way, you wouldn't drive your car to the destination on an empty tank and then fill up when you get there. You would fill up and then do the journey.
Yeah.
You use the fuel to do what you need to do. And that's exactly what I'm doing.
That's where we've gone wrong with food, isn't it? Because I eat because I love it. I spend all day looking forward to a nice meal in the evening. It's terrible. But the other thing about what you do in the wrestling ring is it's very athletic, it's very graceful. So do you have to, do you have any specialist training?
I trained with Robbie Brookside's training school up in Leicester, and I was trained by Gareth Harris, who helped me with the fundamentals and the basics with professional wrestling. But actually, I also have training outside of that, where I train at the Swindon School of Gymnastics.
Wow.
And I've trained there for only a couple of years. As you can probably tell, a man of my size is perfect for a leotard.
I was just thinking.
I mean, I tend to I try to keep up with everyone else there, but I tend to flail around with all the grace of a wounded pigeon.
Well, the wrestling is really, it's somersaults and it's jumping off this and jumping off. Has there been any moves that you've had to execute or any little slip-ups where you think, oh, do you know what? This isn't going to happen tonight?
So back in my younger Cano Tango days, there was an incident where I was wrestling. Actually, I was wrestling in Swindon. I was wrestling in Swindon many years ago, and I did a backflip off the second rope, and the rope snapped, and I landed right on the back of my head.
Ouch.
Now, luckily, I landed in such a way, because I've been trained to protect myself.
Yeah. I
I landed in such a way that I could sort of roll through the movement, so I didn't get a concussion or anything like that. But that could have been horrendous.
Very nasty. Yeah, you could have broken your neck,
Yeah,
broken your back.
absolutely. I could have done any number of things.
Didn't put you off though.
No, it's persevered, got straight back on the horse, because otherwise I would have had a mental block of it, and I would have been scared of it for the rest of my life. So I had to get straight back on the horse.
So how much of your wrestling and your bodybuilding and your personal training informs your comedy act as a stand-up comic? Is it all based around what you do as a sportsman and an athlete?
To be honest, my stand-up comedy is really just telling stories about my life. Now, my life is abstract, as you can probably tell. It's not the typical life. So there's a lot of things there that I can call upon as examples that can make people laugh. But generally speaking, I don't tend to talk too much about my professional wrestling, because not a lot of people can relate to that. It's more like a fleeting glance. I did amateur wrestling, or as I like to call it, Olympic cuddling. And I also did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well.
Oh,
so
Kelly had a go at that, didn't you?
Big
exactly.
fan,
I am
big fan.
absolutely lethal, but only when wearing a dressing gown. So I did a number of things like that. So I can also call upon those and talk about those in great length as well. But generally speaking, I try and keep things to relatable topics, relationships and life experiences and so on.
Yeah.
If people want to catch you with the comedy, where can they find you? Where can they see you?
Well, my next event that I'm actually running myself, I run stand-up comedy events at the Cricklade Club, not surprisingly, in Cricklade. And that one's on the 28th of June, Friday the 28th of June. And they can get tickets on the website, which is kohlweg.co.uk, Kohlweg, or they can just go straight to Cricklade Club's social media pages on Facebook or so on, and they can find tickets through there.
Brilliant. I'm sure you're a funny guy. It's going to be a good night, that's for sure. Finally, we always ask our guests this. So before you go, you've chosen a song. Tell us what you've chosen and why.
Well, on the 23rd of June, I'm going to be treated, because my girlfriend's taking me to go and see Bon Jovi live. I've never seen them live before, so I'm so looking forward to this. So I wanted to choose Bon Jovi, It's My Life.
Special song for you?
Absolutely. I feel the lyrics resonate with how I've chosen to live my life.
Michael Kohlweg, it's been an absolute pleasure. If you want to have a laugh, he's on at the Cricklade Club on the 28th of June. It's a Friday. Otherwise, look out for him in the ring. Remind us of your name again?
Michael Kohlweg, but my stage name is K. Jutler.
Oh, he means business.